In a cab one time driving in the cab, and he says, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm an author and a publisher." And he said, "Well, what book did you write?" And I said, "Liberating Masturbation," and he drove right into the car in front of us.
I had to learn about it from a boyfriend who told me I had a clitoris. I didn't even know I had one. And then he told me about it. And I recall being so anxious to get home and try it out, which I did. And said, "Oh, what's this?"
In the 1960s, the civil rights movement awakened women to their unequal status in the power structure. By the 70s, women were demonstrating for equal rights, equal pay, and reproductive rights.
We are the women that our parents warned us about, and we are proud.
A landmark decision by the Supreme Court that allowed women the right to choose an abortion and the introduction of the birth control pill ushered in the sexual revolution.
In the 1960s, sex therapists began prescribing soft bristle electric toothbrushes like the ones manufactured by Broxo to their patients as masturbatory tools. And at the same period, toward the end of that period, that is at the end of the 60s, the beginning of the 70s, Betty Dodson, who is of course a very important figure in the modern history of the vibrator, she became a kind of proselyte of the vibrator as a feminist icon of autonomous female sexuality. These were known as Swedish massagers. Betty Dodson's boyfriend, and she experimented with using it on her with results that she describes as spectacular.
I discovered it in 1966. It was a memorable day. My brilliant boyfriend, we were in the throes of our mad, passionate love affair. He was at the barbershop, and the barber had this thing on the hand. He's going, and Grant's sitting there, and he's going, "Wow." So he said to the barber, "Where do you get those things? That really feels good." And he says, "Oh, it's an Oster scalp massager." And so Grant right away goes to a barbershop supply store and buys an Oster barbershop scalp massager. And that weekend we get together and he says, "I got something I'm going to show you." He was so excited. And he puts this, it's like these little coils, and it looked like a little cement mixer, and he plugs it in. And so he puts it on I think on my tummy or maybe my breast, and it felt good. It was like, his hands are gonna, and then he starts to slowly move down towards my clit. Oh my God. Oh, and then wow. And then I go, and I push him away, and I said, "I don't know, I don't think I like this." And I remember my fear. It was too easy, it was too fast, and it was very mechanical. I don't know what this thing mechanical that women go through. So I thought, well, we'll use it occasionally. So every now and then we'd get it out for like a novelty. Well, within a few months I had my own, and I was riding my vibrator day and night and just loving every minute of it. Then I began running sexuality workshops, teaching women about orgasms. And I really guess that's been my life work, is teaching women about orgasm, because I couldn't bear the thought that it wasn't available to everyone, and it needs to be. And it's just a basic lack of simple information. I was divorced in '65, and by '66 I had a boyfriend. He was a professor of English, and he'd exited a 17-year marriage, and I had exited a 7-year marriage, and the two of us were extraordinarily horny, and we just did everything. We were so happy to find each other, and we both wanted to try out new things and do different things. So Grant Taylor and Betty Dodson took off to try every threesomes, foursomes, group sex, everything. And I ended up throwing some of the best sex parties in New York right here in this apartment. It was, oh, what a wonderful period that was. It was just, and we never had any idea that it wouldn't continue. We thought it was always going to be like this. I was observing sex in the groups. I mean, that's my real PhD in human sexuality, is going to parties, throwing parties, observing people having sex. And it was clear to me that the guys were all coming and the women were all accommodating and mostly faking orgasm, and the few that were really coming, you know, it was a handful.
I went to a workshop given by Betty Dodson. Basically, it was a workshop to teach women how to use a vibrator and feel free to masturbate on their own. So I went to her workshop, and it was there that I learned from Betty about a vibrator. I had never known anything about it before then. I had kind of thought that they were, I don't know, to use a mechanical thing just didn't seem appropriate for me. But it was a fantastic workshop where women were talking about their bodies and giving their own attitudes. And most women just, you know, had all kinds of shame about their bodies, because we grew up in a culture that made women feel shame and guilt about their bodies and about sexuality, and certainly about masturbation.
One of the most healing aspects of my workshops is at the end of the first day, I did my genital show and tell process. And I would always go first. And I'd get the mirror out, and I have a light, bright light shining down, and the women would gather around, and then I'd look at it just straight on, and I would say, well, now, as you see that, you can see that my inner lips are extended beyond my outer lips, and I thought that I was deformed because I had these long inner lips, and I was convinced that they were deformed because from childhood masturbation. I knew I was masturbating way too much as a child. And I thought, well, there you are. You've been punished. God has punished you. You have these elongated inner lips stretched from childhood masturbation. And it was just terrible. I went through the first 35 years of my life thinking I was genitally deformed. Until my lover, Grant, one day he says, oh, I just love your pussy. It's one of my favorite styles. And I go, this guy is really weird. Styles. And then he said, do you mind if I look at it? He gets the light, and you know, and he reaches over and gets his glasses, and I'm going, because, you know, I'm now going to be outed. So I said, I really rather you didn't. And he says, what's the matter? And I burst into tears, and I do this whole thing about childhood masturbation. And he looked at me like I was some kind of an idiot. I mean, I'm an educated woman. I'm a sophisticated New Yorker. I'm an acknowledged and acclaimed artist. I am a person who's just dumber and shit about my own body. Now, if I was that way, I figured I'm not the only one. There's got to be a whole lot of other women who are going through this, that they think there's something wrong with their genitals. I know this.